Champions League group stage is coming up, where 32 best European teams clash to qualify for the playoffs. From Russia it's gonna be 2 teams, CSKA and Lokomotiv. It could be 3, but Spartak didn't manage to qualify. If they did though, it would be just the second time there's 3 teams from the same city in a group stage. Before this happened just once, when 3 teams from Athens all qualify for the group stage: AEK, Panathinaikos and Olympiakos. So let's now see which records are almost impossible to beat. This is Top 10 Best Champions League Records. And we start from Real Madrid legend Iker Casillas and an incredible 167 games in the main European tournament. In 2002, Iker was already playing his 3rd season in the Madrid starting 11 that won the Champions League that year thanks to Zidane's banger. By the way, Zidane is the 3rd coach that won 3 Champions League trophies. Now that's the magic of numbers. 16 years later, Iker is still playing in the Champions League while his former teammate is already an accomplished coach. 56 games, that's a third of all the games Iker played, are clean sheets. And he has won the tournament 3 times. By the way, do you remember 10 clean sheets in a row in the 2006 Champions League? Quite symbolic that it was the great Arsenal of the great Arsene. On the 9th spot is the fastest goal in Champions League history. In 2007, in the second leg of the round of 16 in a game Bayern vs Madrid, Roy Mackay of Holland scored just 10 seconds into the game. I mean, what can you do with 10 seconds? Record a story for your Instagram, find a song that you want to hear, or maybe text hi to one of your mates. Mackay managed to knock him out of the tournament. 8th place. Not only the goals decide the outcome of the game, but the red cards as well. It's the round of 16 and again it's Bayern, but this time playing against Shakhtar Donetsk. Team from Munich are the favourites, so Alex Kucher decided to leave the pitch and check out the dressing room just 4 minutes into the game. His team was beaten 7-0, but it's much harder to beat his personal record. Maybe he left just cause he needed to go toilet. I mean, Ramos did it last season, so why couldn't he, right? And continuing the sending off subject, in Champions League history there was 4 games with 3 red cards, but no one could even repeat the record of Juventus, and they managed to do it twice. In 2001 and 2006 they got 5 red cards in a season, and cause of that Juve by far has the most red cards in history of Champions League, and just recently Buffon helped improving those stats. That night Madrid escaped a shameful loss and Juve fans were crying for a few days after that game. Juve also holds the record for the most losses in the finals, that's probably karma. Anyways, the red cards of the unlucky Juventus are on the 7th place. We all used to play footy after school and we dreamed of hearing the Champions League anthem in the stadium. And what if I tell you that one school kid actually managed it and he actually played in a Champions League game straight after school? Celestine Babayero left his name in history of Champions League as the youngest player to ever play there when he went out on a pitch in a game Anderlecht vs Tower, being just 16 years and 87 days old. He then became the champion of Belgium and won the English Premier League with Chelsea and even the Olympics. But what a start to his career, straight in history books, 6th place in our ranking. And the oldest footballer to ever play Champions League is Marco Ballotta, the goalkeeper, 43 years and 253 days old. He played his last game on a European stage against Olympiakos, conceding 3 goals. And let's not forget about the Emperor of Rome, Francesco Totti, who was still scoring goals in Europe being 38 years old. There's so few strikers that were able to stay at such high level at that age. 5th place and the biggest Champions League blockbusters. Let's start with German final Dortmund vs Bayern, where nearly 360 million people watched that game. The Red Wedding in Game of Thrones was a bit later on. Then the biggest win, which was in a game Liverpool against Besiktas. It ended 8-0 and was nearly as painful as the battle with Dragon and Khaleesi's army. 8 years after that, Madrid beat Malmo with the same score. Ronaldo scored 4 in that game, pretty much like a warm-up for that guy. And finally the season with the most goals, 2000-2001, 449 goals were scored that season. Last year, for example, it was 52 goals less. 4th, Cristiano Ronaldo, a player made for Champions League. He holds a countless amounts of records in the recent history of Champions League. In the season 13-14 he scored 17 goals, 9 in the group stage and nearly as much in playoffs. So scoring 17 in one season is great, but when you do it nearly every season it's priceless. In 152 games this Portuguese machine scored a total of 121 goals. Incredible. We have a split second and third place this time, the most underrated players in the history of Champions League. Firstly, a fashion icon, a superstar and just an amazing player, David Beckham. Becks doesn't have great stats in Champions League, but his ability to make his team come back on the break of the century was absolutely incredible. And it's not just a 99 final, his corner also started the comeback in Torino the same year in the semis, when Manchester United was losing 2-0 away and ended up scoring 3. By the way, Zidane and Conte were still playing for Juve at that time. And following Becks is Xavi. The Spaniard played 157 games in Champions League, only Casillas has more. He also won the title 4 times, but he's been underrated for all of his career. It happens with the players that don't score a lot of goals, but create and actually start the attack. It's all because these players are always behind on goals and assists. Xavi never got the golden ball, but without him there would be no famous tiki-taka, no Messi records, no Barca that we all know. And by the way, before the Xavi epoch, Barca won the Champions League just once, and his appearance on the second place of our top is just an attempt to restore at least some justice. And on the first place, there's the two incredible Italians. They got famous but not just cooking the most tastiest pizza, but by winning the Champions League with Milan 3 times and winning the European Champions Cup twice. They didn't do it in a row like Ronaldo, but over the course of 18 years. Also, there's the legend Francisco Eto'o, who was owning the European football for 5 years in a row with Real Madrid. Then they took a break and 6 years later won it once again. So just like that, not the most popular Spanish footballer became a record holder for the most Champions League titles. Now there's 4 football players that have some chances to repeat these incredible records. Iniesta, Messi and Piqué won it 4 times and Cristiano Ronaldo already 5 times. We live in an epoch of Messi and Ronaldo, but there are some records that these guys just could not make. For example, none of them won the Champions League with 3 teams. Clans Derdov did it. And the main record that's almost impossible to beat nowadays is 7 goals in Champions League finals. Alfredo Di Stefano and Ferenc Puskás did it one by one, and both did it with Real Madrid and are now forever in the history books.